Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of AV Career Masterminds. This episode should be airing right around shortly after Veterans Day. I think this is where this is gonna fall in with my schedule of the every other Thursday. But this is definitely going to be a fun outside of the box kind of thinking when we talk about looking for a job in the AV industry and kind of what that AV industry entails. So I have two guests today, which is a little bit different for us. So I am going to allow each of them to introduce themselves because I know I will not do it any justice for what their careers hold. So we'll go ahead. Gary, I'll start with you. If you can introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing and give us a little background.
Sure. My name is Gary Albaugh. I'm currently the Vice President of Innovation and Development for MicroTheory Engineering. Previous to that, and my connection with Brandie here today was I was the Chief Information Officer at the United States Military Academy for the last 12 or so years, 25 years of military and civilian service. To our country, and currently I do a lot of classroom technology, audiovisual support, technology support for K through 12, higher education, libraries, museums, and any organization that has a need to make things beep and compute.
That's a good way to put it. I haven't thought about it that way, but that is actually true, right? Brandie, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself to us, that'd be great.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I am Brandie Lane. I am currently the technical section leader with the West Point Band. So I deal with everything that has buttons and knobs and lasers and all that fun stuff. I am a recovering drummer, so that's how I started out my musical life, and then went into the audio field, and now expanding that even more and doing more tech stuff. So it's very exciting. It's been a great learning curve, and excited to do more with the AV field and with the West Point Band.
So why do you say recovering drummer? Explain that because I saw the drums in the back, so I just didn't know if that was the your office space and knowing you deal with the band, if that so explain the recovering drummer part. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, you see the drum set, but what you don't see is the big pile of dust that is on it. So yeah, I mean, I started out doing drums, mallets, timpani, all that kind of stuff. I was a music major in college, was on a music scholarship, but I was an audio major. And that's what I focused on. So yeah, it kind of moved from the performance side more towards the tech and the audio side, and I haven't really looked back since I joined the West Point Band in 2010 as their full-time audio tech, and that role has morphed more into with video and streaming and lighting and all other tech stuff.
So you don't get to play as much anymore, is
Not
what you're
really.
saying.
Not really.
Not
Yeah.
even on the weekends, kind of when a little bit, here
I'm
and there.
working on the weekends. So no, maybe after I get out of the army or something, it'll.
Right. Well, and those are one of those things that it's interesting because when we talk about audio visual, right? We start audio. It's in the name, but everybody tends to go to visual. But people are forgetting that the audio portion does come from music, right? So you're going to look at this and I know nothing about mixing boards. I know nothing about if I would have to do some type of a live event, sitting and mixing audio. I know nothing about that. I could do video. Like, so in a conference room, I can handle that. I could do audio and it's a Zoom or a Teams, but that other portion of it is part of this industry, and people, I think, don't realize that. So in working with West Point and with the band, like, how did that get there? Because did you come out of college immediately into West Point? You said military, so help us understand a little bit of that path that you took.
Short answer is no. I graduated college, and I actually worked for a record label for about four years. It was a classical record label based outside of DC area.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that the military jobs existed. They're just very hard to find. And especially with the West Point Band and other bands like the DC bands, the Army Band, the Navy Band, you get to actually stay at your duty station for 20 plus years. So you basically have to wait for someone to leave and for those jobs to actually open.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I was just kind of casually looking for other jobs and other opportunities in the field that would allow me to expand my skill set a little more. I was in the studio a lot, and I was interested in live sound. I was interested in doing other things, and I knew that the military band jobs offered more than just sitting in a studio and working with classical music clients. So I saw the West Point Band job vacancy open. I had to send in my resume. I had to send in a demo reel. I came up to do an interview. And the way that the special bands, which is what the West Point Band is, the way that the special bands work is we actually get the job first, and then we join the Army. So
Okay.
so I actually won the audio position first, and then I went to MEPS, went to basic training, and then came straight to West Point to start working as an audio tech with the West Point Band. This is probably very different than most military paths where you join first and they tell you where you're going to be going. I'm sure Gary can speak on that more.
So Jen, just to help and put it a little bit in layman's terms, right? So
Thank you.
she hit everything, but like for what people know, like from what they see on TV and movies and stuff. So, like if you were coming out of high school and you want to join the service, you go see your recruiter and they throw you in basic training, and it's like Forrest Gump, you're getting yelled at, and then like you start. There's different levels and there's different pay grades, right? So enlisted is known as an E, and officers are known as an O. So it's like E1 through, and then E2 and E3, and you move through some of the names you guys might know, like private to private first class, and then sergeants, and there's all these different ranks, right? So when you join the service, unless you have something special, like maybe you did a little bit of college or you're an Eagle Scout or something, you start all the way at the bottom at E1, and then you have to work your career up. But there's a lot of those openings. Like if I want to, there's two kind of realms. There's combat arms and combat support. So if I want to do something where like I am on the front lines, where I'm jumping out of planes and like, or I'm shooting artillery, or I'm doing something like you see in the movies, that's combat arms. And there's a lot of those positions, but there's also a lot of positions in the service that people don't realize, like all the branches of service have like plumbers and electricians, and they have nurses and lawyers and like military police, and that's combat support, right? But what Brandie did is like she didn't start at the bottom. She had to build a career and a resume, and it's kind of like going to like America's Got Talent or The Voice or something. Like she had to have something to be able to fill that one unique slot, because the band only has like, let's say 50 or 60 slots, and those people are so unique that they can indefinitely stay there, whether they're like the 1st Infantry Band or the US Army Band or the West Point Band. And those people that are like a flautist or a pianist, like a lot of those people are in like other positions where I was in, the New York Philharmonic for 2 years, or I was doing this. And then, so she also, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brandie, you came in already as an enlisted, like in the sergeant ranks. So you came in as like an E5 or E6.
So we actually entered basic training as a E4, and that's mostly because most of us have at least have a bachelor's. A lot of us have masters or are in the doctorate path.
Okay.
We definitely have a lot of folks who entered the military while they were finishing up their PhD or DMA or something. So yes, we start as an E4 because of our civilian acquired skills, which is what Gary was talking
Hmm.
about, where we typically have a full career before we join, and we're bringing that into the Army in this case. We are accelerated to a staff sergeant level, or a E6, and that's definitely one of the I guess the benefits of the special bands. There are regular bands
Hmm.
in all branches. They typically start out as a E4,
Okay.
and then they go through E5, E6. They don't fall under the civilian acquired skills.
Okay.
So yeah, there's two different paths with bands too, and I just happened to be lucky enough to be able to join one of these special bands, and been at the special band now for almost 15 years now. So very, very lucky.
So, because I'm a mom, right? My son's 14. He's in high school. He's freshman in high school. So, and even when I was in high school, I remember the military recruiters coming in, depending on what branch of the service it was for. They don't talk to you about this.
No.
They don't. They don't. And it from a parent, I'm like, oh my God, that's scary. Like my son's gonna
Yeah.
go in at 18 and he's gonna be on the front lines and all of this, but there's a whole realm, which what it sounds like you've done. And Gary, I don't know if I think your path was a little different, but
Let me tell you, to keep Brandie out of trouble on this, so Brandie is still, you're a master sergeant right now?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
she holds the rank of master sergeant and is still an active duty Army person. And I can say some things that are a little different because I've been out of the Army. I served 8 years, and just retired as a my 25 years of civil service. So I could say a little things a little bit more critical of the Army than she can.
I'm not listening.
Yeah. So recruiters, and I loved all my time in the Army. I enjoyed everything I did. But some of the recruiters, they get like a sheet and they're like, hey, like X amount of people through attrition have left the Army in this job. So we need these type of people.
Right.
So a lot of times they don't go to someone like your son and say, what do you want to do? They try and like a little bit of the used car salesman of like, I got too many Fords on the lot here. I need to sell Fords. Let's push the Fords, right? So hey, we don't have maybe enough cooks or enough artillerymen or enough mechanics. So they try, and it's also, you have to take the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, which
Yeah.
is known as the ASVAB. So it also depends on what your ASVAB scores is. So they'll have a sheet after you take that ASVAB, and they know like what your math scores are, your engineering, and you qualify for certain jobs. When I joined the service, there was like a tagline. There was 212 ways to become a soldier, right?
Mm.
So there was 212 what we call MOSs, or military occupational specialties, and they will try and pick you based on what your ASVAB scores are and what the needs of the Army are. Some young men and women go right in there and they're like, hey, I really want to be a lawyer. I want to join the JAG Corps, and they're very um, distinct on like the path that they're going to take. And some people are like, hey, I want to see the world. I want to get some of my benefits. I don't want to live at home with mom anymore. And then
Yeah.
they're like, all right, whatever, here's a couple options, whatever you want to do. Right. Yeah. So, and that's how like Brandie had already had a career and then joined into the Army. I went to college also. I didn't join the service until I was 22. So I was a little bit more mature than some of the people that I had signed up, because I had like 17 and 18-year-old kids next to me. Like, and when Brandie was going through basic training, I'm sure, like, because she already had her career, she's in her like mid to late 20s,
Yep.
maybe even, some people I've seen all the way up to like age 30,
Yep.
that are going through basic training, which, like, it's a whole different experience than that 18-year-old kid that just graduated high school.
So then, is basic training regardless of the position? Coming in, Gary, after being in college, and Brandie, you having a career coming in, or versus the 18-year-old, is the basic training the exact same kind of basic training that as a civilian we envision and what we see in the commercials and the TVs and all of that? Is it exactly the same?
It is just as wonderful
Intense.
as you could possibly imagine. No, I yeah, I mean, to be fair, it was one of the hardest experiences that I went through. I am so glad that I went through it. I learned more about myself in those
Oh,
10 weeks than
I'm sure.
I ever have. And just being able to push myself to those kinds of limits, and also um, handle the stress and handle all of the things that are thrown every direction. I don't know any other time in my life before that I had
Hmm.
been through something like that, and it definitely taught me more resiliency. It taught me more of what I was capable of, things that I thought that I was scared of and that I would never do. I got to experience a lot of that, and it definitely has helped me throughout my life, my career. And I think a lot of the things, even though basic training was now like a long time ago,
Right.
I still think about a lot of those things that we learned, some of the basics, a lot of the values, and a lot of that I put, when I'm uh, teaching, when I'm working with other people, a lot of those values have carried over. So as intense as it is, yes, it really does teach you a
Mm.
lot. I don't know if I feel differently than somebody at 18 would, where they would come through and not understand everything that's going on and how it's going to help them later. Maybe so, but yeah, going through basic a little bit older, I think hit differently. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, no, and I can, just you experience different things in your life, right?
Mhm.
And as you are young and 18 coming in, you think you know everything, right? Even with my 14-year-old, he thinks he knows everything. He
Yeah,
thinks he has all the answers, but they don't have enough experience. And so you don't have those certain experiences to be able to say, I can do this because I've been through this in my
right,
life or been through this experience. Like, to them, this is the hardest thing that they've ever had to endure, which they're just starting, right?
right,
Mom and dad or grandma, grandpa, everybody has like pretty much done everything for them for a lot of them up until that point, and now they're all on their own.
right.
Yeah, so I think it definitely is a completely different aspect of it. So with what you're doing with the band, and from the audio aspect of it, do you have, and because I'm looking at it also from some of my other people that I know within the higher ed community and with tech managers and technology and live events and things that they're doing, do you have like a student worker that helps you? Do you have those kids in the band that are like the students or the students at West Point, do they have the ability to have that side job within technology while they're going, or how does that work for the kids that are there?
Unfortunately not. The schedule for the students at West Point
Hmm.
is absolutely, I mean, to the minute
I'm
planned.
sure,
And
right.
it, we've been lucky enough to have a few, let me think, there are cadets in the Glee Club and the rock band, Spirit Band, who have expressed some interest
Hmm.
in tech and sound. They come hang out when they can. A lot of
Hmm.
it's a volunteer type
Right,
basis, and they have to have some sort of like free period or um, free time, which is just not very much for them.
right.
But we of course try to accommodate as much as we can. We've been lucky enough. We've been able to work with the firsties or the seniors on a big event for them called 100th Night, which is kind of like it's like a musical variety show type thing. There've been some years where they've actually they've made their own music and written their own lyrics and everything. So we've brought them into the studio and been able to work with them. But we mainly work with any of the musical groups that are clubs or but in terms of having like a student like an intern or a volunteer or something, no, unfortunately.
I would say though, if I jump in and in the opposite role, so as Brandie, like you kind of asked her, do they mentor the students, right? So there was a time where some of the staff down at the West Point Band were doing some things. We'll call it in a traditional manner that a lot of people are used to doing. Like so the command team down at the time, people like Brandie, there was other people in the West Point Band. If afterwards you ever want to check out their website, and some of the names I'm saying, like Barry Cooper and Yalin Chi and some of the people that have come and gone before them that I worked with, they said, hey man, like, could you mentor us, as in me, while I was a CIO there, and could you help us do some things? We're musicians, but we're really into like all the tech and IT stuff, and we're tired of carrying around all these music folders. So we would love to be one of the first people to integrate into the cloud, right? So in 2015 and 16, it was how could we digitize all these files into PDFs? And the band was actually our first integrator. Before COVID and everything happened, West Point jumped onto Microsoft Azure and Teams around 2016 and 17, and they were our first test group. And they put all their music in the cloud, and then they were like, this is awesome. Now, could we also integrate this where every player in the various bands, concert bands, Benny Haven's band, we want to carry an iPad with us, so we don't have to have this big briefcase of folders, and we want the cloud to talk to the iPad so that we can integrate and be like, I'm just putting an iPad on my music stand, and you'll see them playing, and they're just like swiping as somebody's playing. And they did this whole plan with IT, with my office, to figure out how can we make ourselves more innovative within the music and mixing the IT in what we do.
That sounds simple, but there probably is some limitations because it is military. Am I right?
I'm sure at home somewhere in your house, you probably you're using like Google Drive or or a Dropbox or something, but there's probably somewhere in your closet or in your garage like the old file folder of like that's where my mortgage
Would you like me to show you my Rolodex of business cards that I have sitting here, right?
So imagine having to take all those, because not everything existed as PDFs as well. Imagine having to take all those, digitize them, then sequence them into folders that were going to be indexable and searchable. So if I'm like, I couldn't just put like music page 1. I had to put like Tchaikovsky's whatever, page, and then index it all, make it searchable. And they were not only willing to be the first participants of that, but like Brandie and some of the staff at the band also, when this had to happen, I said, look, I know you guys aren't IT people, but in order to get IT access, because of some of the security regulations, because of the military regulations, like I hold a master's degree, I hold a CompTIA Security Plus certification, I hold a CISSP. You have to get those too. And Brandie was like, sure, send us to school, we'll do it. And all the staff down there were like, they were passing the exams faster than my IT people were passing the exams. And I was like, all right, let's, like, whenever we have something cool IT to do, I'm going to the band from now on.
Yeah.
Right. So let's look at this from now the aspect of since you have had a degree, right? You have been through college, right?
Yeah.
What is the for anybody that's out there, right, that's trying to say, I want to do something and I want to be able to have some type of career, whether it's audiovisual, whether it's not audiovisual, right? I have this degree, you're like you said, a cook. Like I've gone to school and I'm a chef and I'm all this. What is that? What does that path? Where does somebody start if they say, I want to do this. I want to be able to give back to the country because you still are, regardless of what you're doing,
Yes.
you're still giving back. What is that? What does that path look like? And what are some of those additional benefits that I'm going to be able to do?
You would talk to what's called a liaison. So they are the ones that are responsible for basically getting you the information about the bands. All service branches have them, and you audition. And then going through the regular Army band field, you would basically fill a position in a band where they needed it. So that may be um, down in Texas, that may be um, in Alaska, that may be in Germany. So wherever there are openings, that's where they send folks. And the soldiers in the regular Army band field typically move around every three or 4 years. For the special bands, you basically have to wait till a job vacancy opens and that band will post it, and then at that point you are dealing directly with that band, and their people help, with telling you where to send your packet, and um, let you know if you made the finals, et cetera, et cetera. So a couple different path options, but I think just staying in LinkedIn with the either the Army band system, the Navy band system, Air Force band system, they all have opportunities, and they do a good job of linking in with music schools, and just trying to get as much information out there as they possibly can. But there's unfortunately not like a like a tried and true way. You just kind of have to see what's out there. I always tell my students with everything, not only with the music field but with the audio field too. I mean, it's never to limit yourself. It's any job that you think may not be worth it. That's your first problem. Every job is worth it. You're going to learn something, whether it be uh, getting coffee for a engineer in Nashville, or whether it's working on a cruise ship, whether it's working doing archiving for somebody. You're definitely going to learn something, and a lot of it has to do with learning how to work with people. There's a lot of people out there that have the tech skills and they have the training. Talking to people and working with people is what can separate someone getting hired versus someone that doesn't. So I think just keeping that in mind as you're looking for the opportunities, especially in the AV field. I think making sure that you are ready to talk about how you work with people and how you work in high stress types of situations. I think that's probably the most important thing to be confident with when you're starting to look into different jobs.
And I would just say too, like, there's some additional caveats here. And like, if I'm applying for an AV job for like a major corporation like a Shure or a Sennheiser or Crestron or Extron, like, I don't have to be physically fit in the same manner that you do to join the military, right?
Right.
So Brandie can still kick anybody's butt in like the 2 mile run and like her push-ups and yeah,
bike
yeah.
now.
And but like, there's some age restrictions. There's some like some of your health background, like they don't take certain people that have major health limitations and stuff.
Right.
So that's where there's a differing thing. But like, I was in that chair once too, and like it's if you're going in that route to go into the military, I mean, the military has great medical and dental and life insurance, and most of the time you don't have to figure out what you have to wear. They dress it for you, right? It's great job skills. It's great networking and friends that you get a bond with, that like you go through some things. We're an 100% volunteer army. There's no draft, right?
Yeah.
So since you're giving up part of your life towards service to your country, you get benefits back for that. So whether it's like your educational benefits, or a 10% discount at Home Depot because you're a veteran, right? Some
Right.
of that is like, thank you for taking
Yes.
4, 5, 10, 20 years of your life to protect our country. So there's some there's some intangible things in there that come into play. But it's just it depends on the pathway that you want to choose. Again, as Brandie said, like she was in audio. She wanted to go into audio. There happened to be a slot open. She fit in and was maybe one of, I don't know, 15 or 20 people applying for that one slot, right?
And that's the difference, is they're very, like you said, they're limited. And
Yep.
so you've said, what, you've been in your position 15 years?
Yes.
I'm sure, so your position doesn't come available until you say,
Right.
But she also has to stay like relevant in what she does, because even though her position is there, like she doesn't just hold the position indefinitely. Like this ain't no union job, like,
Yeah.
good.
and I know this because I supported the band, and I would like help and be like, hey, let's pay for whatever training you need.
Yeah.
Let's send you to events, and if you guys want to go to Infocom, if you want to go to CES and see some new cool things, let's do that and educate you. Because what we don't want is Brandie, the audio engineer from 2000, to be in a position in 2024. In my world in IT, it was like the guy that learned his degree in 2000 on Windows NT. Maybe I don't want that guy to be in the office still in
Right.
2024 being like, hey, what's this Windows 11 thing? Because I don't understand it yet. Like they
Right.
have to continue to evolve and know the new technology, and people like Brandie and the band have been great at doing that.
And that's something that we were very thankful to Gary while he was at West Point. He definitely offered us a lot of those professional development opportunities. Where, before I took the Avixa course, I didn't know what I didn't know, and once I took that course, it was like, oh gosh, like I definitely have a lot to catch up on. So it definitely kickstarted my entire team, actually. So
Did you have your
Mhm.
CTS? So,
Yeah.
and this is where I think that's amazing to hear, is because, again, we think outside of the military and just within the audiovisual field itself, CTS is a manufacturer. CTS is somebody that's designing the systems within sales. Some of a couple of the higher ed organizations are sending people to get their CTS because they're working in the technology department, or the CIOs, or the information technology, whoever's handling the technology that's going in. So that's amazing to hear that you were able to, and had somebody that said, we want you to be able to do this, and know Avixa from, and I'm going to say it, Avixa in the way that it's within the military, because I've been through Infocom. I don't know if you walk around in plain clothes, if you're there, or if you're supposed to be in your dress. I have no idea. So I'm looking at it from an aspect going, there's just regular people, right?
Yeah, and I would say some of what the way the military has changed, and whether this is Army, Navy, or Air Force, um, probably like 70s, 80s, like we'll talk after post World War II Korea and stuff. Like there was still the age of computers. A lot of stuff was proprietary, right? So the Army would build a computer system, and it would be the Army's computer.
Right.
And then if I was a computer technician, I got trained and I was certified by the Army to learn the Army's computer.
Right.
When I joined the service around, I won't say the year, but
yesterday.
yeah,
a few years ago. It's
a few
fine.
years.
And I joined, it was like, oh my God, we need all these new computer technicians. I went you go through basic training and then you go what's called AIT, or your advanced individual training. And that varies from like different, like if you're going to be a cook, maybe you're only in school for like 3 months. So my AIT was 1 year long, and there was 250 of us in one class, right?
Oh, wow.
And because they're like, we need a lot of people, and this is something, there's going to be a bunch of people that fail out, and we're probably going to get like 100 good IT people, right? And the first thing we did was we went through Microsoft school and got our MCSE, and then we went through Cisco school and got our CCNA, which are different certifications. But we were getting actual corporate logo certifications instead of like, oh yeah, you're trained on that Army system. It's like,
Right.
no, now you're trained on Windows 7, now you're trained on the Cisco Catalyst series, right? So that's where things have changed too, where a lot of things and no specific brand, as I say, different ones, like West Point and some of the infrastructure there, you might see like JBL speakers or Meyer Sound, and then you might see like a Crestron or Extron panel, or you might see like Shure or Sennheiser or different stuff. But like, you got to know that technology and not like the Army microphone, right? So that's where things have changed, where you have to have stuff like Avixa, whether it's CTS, or you have to have so I think we sent some of the band people to like CompTIA A plus and N plus and Security Plus to have basic like above basic like computer and networking stuff, because now all of a sudden AV over IT. Oh, I need to know how to do TCP/IP and protocol and IP addressing and stuff. And it's like, it just blows your mind. It's like some of these people are like, I'll just use Barry. Barry Cooper's a good friend of mine, and he's one of the best trombone players I've ever met, right? But Barry also like knows how to configure a Cisco switch, right? Because he was like, I can put up the outdoor wireless access points, so if we're going to have a concert. So it's like, wow, you're not just a trombone player, you're actually have like 2 IT certifications, and you know crap about IT.
Well, and this is the whole, this is, and so the wheels in my brain are just spinning now, because it's, you're doing these type of things, right? And all of these different companies that are out there that are hiring, there's lots of people that are out there that are looking for jobs, and there's lots of positions that are out there. And, you hear all the time from different companies, we can't find good people. We can't find, somebody to fit this specific role. So again, I go back to, you're on a resume, right? You're submitting this resume and you're going through. So if you're coming and you're retiring from the military and retiring from, say, like the position like you have, Brandie, if you say, whatever that position is within the band or within the audio field, and you say, okay, I've done this military work. I want to retire from this.
Yeah.
And, maybe they say, because you've been in one position, at one location, I want to go into sales. So whatever that case may be, a recruiter's looking at a resume and they're not seeing certain things, which I think is for someone coming out of the military and trying to get back into being into civilian work, that could be disheartening, right? Because now you're looking at this and going, if I'm on 2 pieces of paper and that's all I'm doing is looking at 2 pieces of paper, and I see person 1 has all of this that they've done, right? They've worked for this company and that company, or done this project or done that project, and then they see somebody that could be just like, working in the military, and how do they do that? Like, what do you have for some recommendations? I don't know, Gary, because since you've been out and now you're working, with an audiovisual company, like what is that recommendation for somebody? And what is that recommendation for the companies that are hiring, that are potentially listening and saying, yeah, look at that person that's coming from a military background. You never know.
I will say, and I don't know if Brandy is definitely young enough to have a career after retiring from the military if she chooses. And
We'll see.
I know, yeah. When I got out of the service, I went on my first job interview, and it was with a pharmaceutical company in New Jersey. And I was nervous. It was for a networking job, right? So I meet with the first level supervisor. He likes my resume. We talk. We hit it off, and then he's like, "Can you stay? There's a part two of this interview. We're a small business, and everybody has to interview with the president of the company." And I was like, "Yeah, like." I was just happy like I had gotten that far, and we were going to do it all in the same day, right? So I wait. I go in. He introduces me to the president. I sit down. He's got my resume in his hand, and he flips it over, and he puts the empty on the back of the paper, and he slides it over to me, and he goes, "Draw me a network diagram." And I was like, "Okay, like what type of network are you looking for, and like do you want to see all the OSI layers and stuff?" And he goes, "I don't know, you tell me." Right? And I was like, it was a little intimidating, and I draw him what I know, right? And then he looks at me, and he looks at it, and he goes, "Yeah, you're in the service. This is a little too tactical for us. Have a nice day." and
Oh
and
my
that was
goodness.
Wow.
that was the end of my interview, right? And then I walked out, and the guy that I had seen in the first interview, he goes, "Oh wow, I don't think he's ever done that before." And I'm like, "Oh my god, all I know is the military. I'm never going to get a job. I'm going to have to go back into the military." So there is some of that, like you do, like, because I also wrote my resume very like military like with acronyms and things that I had spelled out, but like a lot of people in the civilian world don't know what the hell that is. When you're like,
Right.
I worked on a very small aperture terminal, VSAT, and they're like, what the hell is, like,
Yeah.
somebody that is in the military knows what that is, right?
Right.
So there was a little bit of that. I did some workshopping classes when you do transition out of the military. They do have some resume writing classes. They do mini job fairs. I would I would say like things like watching a podcast like this or talking with people in the industry and knowing what they're looking for is very helpful, because just because you know everything, you may be like, I just have to get the interview because I'm going to knock their socks off with everything that I know. But if you can't even get to the point to get to that interview,
Right.
then like, because they're just looking at a piece of paper first to figure out, and that piece of paper has to impress them enough, right? Now, uh, some of that is different depending upon the job you do and how like that translates in what you do. There's some things in the military, like it's obvious if that's on your resume, you're organized, you should be, I'll say. You're organized, you should be punctual, you're on time, you know, you know how to lead men and women, regardless of like sometimes you're a low level person, you can lead a platoon or a team of like 5 or 6 people, to you can be a master sergeant like Brandie who would be in charge of like a company or battalion leading, hundreds to thousands of people, right? So that is some like things when they know from looking at that. But yeah, it's tough in that you got to figure out what those things are to get them to let you in the door to hopefully get that opportunity. And I don't know, Brandie, if you have anything to add, like I've kind of put yourself in that spot of like, okay, tomorrow I'm gonna retire from West Point, and I think I want to go into like the recording studio, or I want to go on tour with a band, or I want to do something. I want to, go into civil service, and I'd love to work with public affairs at the White House or something, and be like do all the correspondence on the daily stuff at the Pentagon or whatever. Like, what do you see
Yeah.
would be your big hurdles?
Yeah, so this is a very timely question because I am kind of like turning the corner, I guess, at the end of my career, like that whole phase, and I am starting to think about, okay, what's next. I think one thing that the military does give you, and Gary touched on it some, is just the management and leadership skills that you can't say, or you can't necessarily claim as a a freelancer or a person who is just on contract from job to job to job. So when I'm thinking about the next step, I'm definitely am thinking more in like a management type role, and comfortable with that too. I enjoy working with teams. I've been working with a team pretty much my entire career at this point, and I love working with people. I love the team aspect. I love the more things that we can do with multiple people, and utilizing different strengths, and having that team work to make something happen. That's really exciting for me. So although I want to stay as much in the audio field as I can, or now the AV field, because I'm gaining more skills. I see myself more as in a supervisor, over an entire team versus actually like
Like the salesperson, yeah,
right,
like the
right,
sales or the rep or working with.
right,
It's that transition to be from going from like a blue collar, like I'm working, to now
Yep.
a white collar, I'm an executive and leader of the workers, right? So you've transitioned up, and that's also a lot of, in the military, we'll say, the enlisted corps, which are non-commissioned officers, right, are the worker bees, we'll say, and then the officers are the leader of men and women, right? So there's less officers, more enlisted, right? But then as you go up in the enlisted ranks, there's less of those ranks, and so on. So you also have to like show and explain some of that stuff, because if Jen, you're interviewing me or Brandie today, and she's like, yeah, I was a master sergeant, and I'm like, yeah, I was a specialist, like I was a E4, like you don't know what the hell that means. Right?
yeah.
So like so the level like of that you led people, and and how you led people, and how many, and what the impact was, also to have an understanding of like, I don't want to leave the service and go into a worker bee job. Like, I'm at a level now in my career, I want to be a junior level executive, or a mid level, or a high, that sort of thing.
But one thing we are, at least in the West Point band, using is we're trying to align the terms with what the rest of the field's using. So we have project managers, we
Mhm.
have directors, producers, all that kind of stuff. So I feel pretty confident when I'm making my resume for that next step. Those are some titles that I can use, and I do have the experience of those roles within the West Point
Right.
band, and I still feel comfortable doing that outside of the
Yes.
West Point band too. So yeah,
A-
I'm happy with how we're trying to align those.
and which is good, I think, because I think, like you said, Gary, that's the hardest part is when you're applying for any type of other job out of the military. I don't know what any of those mean. When I worked for a manufacturer, one of the guys that I worked for that handled federal government sales, he was in the military. And as a former teacher, I know the levels of teacher, tech director, superintendent, but the buyers, right? Who are the buyers, and who are the teachers? He would say, oh, based on, and I know I'm going to not say this right, but based on the little stripes or wherever, he knew what level they were at. And he would say, oh, that's like the teacher. That's like, the principal. That's like, so he understood all of that. So he was perfect when we would go to the different type of trade shows that were geared towards something in the military or for the federal government. He knew. So I just,
Yeah.
helped you the show of it, and he talked to the right people because I have no idea. But the fact that you're now being able to transition and have some of those same kind of titles, which for coming out are going to be very helpful, I think, for everybody. That's awesome.
What I will say, and I'm I'm sure I'll get nods from Brandie and on this, and we have a message on this together, and it's a little bit of a serious message, and because I know this is like a very lighthearted podcast, but what we do want is for anybody that is a veteran to know how to do that transition, know what resources are out there, because there's some scary facts out there that the highest homeless rate right now is among veterans, right? It's people that transition out of the service and they really don't know what to do with themselves, and they maybe take a bad decision or a wrong path, and we don't want any more veterans to have to be in that situation and be without without the things that they need to be able to have a home and have a lifestyle that any other normal person can have. And on top of that, then some of the when you don't transition, you get into homelessness. A lot of the numbers within some of our military service between some of the drug usage and suicide rates are high as well, right? And some of that is indecision, like, or I've been doing something for 20 years and I get out and I don't know what to do with myself and I feel like I'm lost, right? So there's a lot of places like the VA that has resources for you for the transition period to be able to, if you are looking for another job, if you are looking to do a transition, or if you're having trouble with those things,
Right.
there's a lot of resources out there and benefits out there so that we don't have these problems. And then I hope that veterans take advantage of those and know those so that they do have a better transition period from going from the green uniform to, the suit and tie uniform.
Which is heartbreaking, right? If anybody that has had anybody that has served in the military, my uncle was in the Navy, and he older, he was recently about 2 years ago passed away. He was in his 80s, but anyway, he was able to come out of that and be fine. But you see that, and when you see people that aren't, they have done such a service for the country, and it's like, God, how do you not, like, how can we not help them more? A lot of times I think they're afraid to ask for help too, and that's a stigmatism that with anybody, you need to be able to raise your hand and ask someone for help, regardless, military, non-military.
Right. And I mean, the work aspect is just one part of it. I mean, it is a lifestyle change, and that's something that I know that I am struggling with thinking about, in the next 5+ years. Like, my entire life is
Right.
is 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 going to change. What I've been used to for 20 years is going to look completely different.
Right.
And that's where I think definitely mental health's a big thing, and also just being able to as Gary said, take advantage of as many options as possible. I mean, there's the GI Bill. I've taken advantage of some of that with getting my master's while I've been in, and then I plan to use the what I have left after that. There's a skill bridge, which allows soldiers that are getting out some sort of internship opportunity to at least get into the
Right.
workforce before getting hired. So there are resources. I definitely hope that there will be more that come about in the next 5 to 10 years, because I would love to take advantage of them.
Right.
But yes, I think definitely being confident enough to seek those out, and also making sure that you're taking care of yourself first. That's a big thing, because it's I don't know firsthand, but I know from others it is very, very difficult, just coming out of an entire life that you now need to take a hard turn and do something else.
It's the same for anybody. If that's worked at a company for years, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, there were layoffs, company closed or whatever, now you have to transition. Everybody, goes through it, and we're all, regardless, still afraid to kind of raise our hand and say. So, um, guys, I could continue to talk because I think this is such an important subject. But I want to, I know our listeners are probably, their wheels are probably turning on different things that as an audiovisual industry we can do to support the veterans that are coming out and help them also get careers and jobs within the industry because they're there. I think regardless, some of the veterans that are coming out are probably going to be amazing in this industry for management and leadership because they can help all of us the young ones that are coming in, get a focus and ensure we're doing our jobs the way we should be doing with our customers. So, but thank you both. So one thing we want to know is how can we get a hold of you? So if anybody has questions about getting in, right, and doing certain things, understanding, Brandie, what you're doing with West Point's band, Gary, what you're doing, how can we get a hold of you?
I'm on social media on all the major platforms: Instagram, LinkedIn. My last name and first initial, so Albaugh, ALBAUGHG, at Albaugh. And then for my company, it's at MicroTheory ENG for engineering. Again, on all the major platforms. I know Brandie's going to tell all the things that you can find West Point as. But as a child born and raised at West Point, grew up there too. If she doesn't mention it, I'm going to. They have an awesome summer concert series. It's free, open to the public. I think they still do it, but I know when I was a kid, they used to, at least at one of the concerts, do the 1812 Overture with like the live cannons. They do a great concert with 4th of July and the fireworks. And there's just like so many opportunities to see them, whether they're performing locally within up and down the Hudson Valley. You may see them on TV. Sometimes they perform at the NBA Finals. They perform at the Super Bowl. They perform at all these different events because they are a world-renowned band. So if you have the opportunity to see them, I know as she gives you their social media, go out and see them. There's all different types of band. There's a jazz band. There's the Hellcats. There's the concert band. There's everything. It's awesome to see, and it's usually free when you go to see them.
Wow, we're gonna have to get you a T-shirt or something,
Seriously,
Gary. My
right?
gosh, you're our biggest fan. I love
Biggest
this. Thank
supporter.
you. No, everything he said is absolutely true. I mean, we're at westpointband.com. Coming up, even before our summer concert series, we have our West Point Holiday Show, which is my personal favorite event. We do the holiday stuff better than anybody else. I am very confident in saying that. It is a wonderful show. It's at Eisenhower Hall Theater on West Point on campus on base at West Point. So we encourage everybody to come to that. It's free. It'll be the first Saturday and Sunday of December. So I think that's the 5th and the 6th. I'm not looking at a calendar at the moment, but yes, but our summer concerts are also amazing. Summer 2025 will be the Army's 250th birthday. Yeah. So we're going to do a huge event for that. That'll be on July 4th, which is a Friday. So that'll be at Trophy Point, which is also at West Point. Personally, you can find me at Brandie Lane Audio. And I try to post as much as I can with West Point stuff and just some other personal stuff that I'm doing. So feel free to look for me there. And we look forward to seeing folks at our West Point holiday show.
Oh my gosh, that'd be now that I know, that'd be amazing. I have to at some figure out how to take a trip up there and get to see it. And guys, thank you so much. I thoroughly appreciate you taking the time and being on. I know that this is going to be an episode I think that's going to resonate with lots of people, and hopefully we can do something to help those that are coming out and get into this crazy world of audiovisual that we all love and dear so much. And guys, remember, we are all more than words. Thanks again.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.